Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. It is wonderful to have you here, and today we are going to take a look at the cheapest and most enjoyable route to Era 3, and I am sure that this topic is one that is going to be of high interest to many of you because everybody wants Era 3, but everyone kind of gets put off with it immediately by looking at the XP requirements needed to get to Era 3. But keep watching this video and I'll tell you exactly why you should pick up the BMP-3. Right, Era 3, or typically, Era 3 is from the start of Era 1. If you're brand new to the game, you've never played Cold War, Era 3 from the start of Era 1 is around 800 to 900,000 XP. And that's not the top of Era 3, that's just to unlock a stock T-72B or an M1. To unlock a stock BMP-3, all you need is about 621,000 XP. I say all you need, that is still a lot of XP, but when you consider that you can save yourself almost 200,000 and still end up in the same place, that's a bargain in my opinion. That is a massive bargain. And the BMP-3, you might think, oh well, it's a bargain, it must be crap. It's not. The BMP-3 is one of the best light tanks in Era 3, if not the game, in my opinion. Its playstyle is a mashup between the BMP-2 and the BMP-1, which is pretty handy really because you'll have already played those two by the time you get to Era 3, so you're already pretty much set up and you'll already know exactly what you can and can't do in the BMP-3, so there's no sort of additional learning curve. You're already set up, ready to go with this thing when you unlock it. Okay, so my equipment setup for the BMP-3 is camo, tracks, and engine. For me, that is a standard light setup as I want to boost my concealment and I want to boost my speed as much as possible. And as you can see here, I'm doing 93 kilometers an hour, which really, that's very, very good, and that is one of the reasons why I like the BMP-3 so much. Alright, there is a slight difference to the way I've got my crew set up though for the BMPs, and that is because these tanks have slightly different weapon systems, and to make the most of these weapon systems I have the crew skill Deadeye equipped, and there's a very good reason for this. But before we get to that, your first question is probably, what does Deadeye do? Well, Deadeye provides you with a 6% increase to your chance to do additional damage to crew and modules in enemy vehicles. How does that play out in the game? Well, when you combine the 6% increase per shot, keep in mind this is per shot, the 6% increase to the 304 rounds a minute that the BMP-3 does, and the 234 rounds a minute that the BMP-2 does, you have yourself a combination that will totally shred any unfortunate enemy tank that finds itself on the angry end of your gun. The same goes for missiles, and when you combine the BMP-3 with the right playstyle, you'll be setting engine fires more regularly than normal because, well, the right playstyle, in my opinion, the right playstyle is you want to plant missiles either, not like that because I just missed, anyway, you want to plant missiles in the rear ends of vehicles because that's where they're weakest. And I say engine fire specifically because now that we've got the Leopards in the game, you're going to be setting a lot more fires if you are able to hit Leopards in the side or the rear, because their fuel tanks are very, very vulnerable and they like to catch fire. So use Deadeye to your advantage and just set Leopards on fire left, right and centre. Alright, one last thing to note with my setup for the BMP-3 is the various ammunition types that we have available for this tank. And what you choose is of course up to you. It's up to your, it's dependent on your playstyle. But for me, what I like to do is I like to take out what impacts my gameplay the least. And here's what I mean. The primary weapon is a 30mm cannon, fairly normal, but the secondary is where things change a little bit. The secondary is a 100mm anti-tank guided missile launcher that can also fire HE, which is, you know, it's not the first time we've seen this in the game. The Sheridan does the same thing. It will fire an HE round, and it will also fire a missile out the same barrel. So far, it's not that new, but what catches you off is when you're in the middle of an engagement, instead of switching to the 30mm, which, you know, you have to hold the button down. And here I am using the 30mm to totally shred these guys, bouncing off the sides a little bit, but get behind him, and he's dead. Bang. Love this thing. Anyway, yes, instead of switching from the 30mm to the 100mm anti-tank guided missiles, what can end up happening is if you don't hold the button down long enough, you end up switching to HE rounds, and then you pull the trigger, nothing happens, and you wonder what the hell is going on. It's because you've switched ammo types for the secondary, you haven't switched to the primary. And this is why I have the loadout that I do. I carry 600 rounds of gold ammunition for the 30mm, and I only carry ATGMs for the 100mm. I do not carry any 100mm rounds because, for me, having to switch weapon systems and ammo types for each weapon system and keep my eye on where I'm going, it's just too much for me to focus on when I'm in the middle of a fight, as well as trying to avoid enemy vehicles. I want to simplify my gameplay to the point where I can just focus on the enemy that's in front of me, and I don't have to worry about, oh, which gun am I loaded, which ammunition type have I got loaded. You know, I can get rid of all that concern because I'm only carrying 2 ammunition types. Okay, at this point, I am going to circle back to my 600 rounds of gold. Standard rounds for the BMP-3 only have 120mm of penetration. I carry gold because while boosting the penetration to 190 might not seem like a lot for Era 3, I'll take any advantage I can get. And you might be thinking, well, isn't that a really, really expensive way to play the game or play this tank? Well, for me, in my experience, no, it's not really been too bad because, in my opinion, the right playstyle for the BMP-3 is that the ATGMs are the primary weapon system. The 30mm primary is the actual secondary, because the playstyle using ATGMs as the primary weapon system, that's made possible because the ATGMs in the BMP-3 reload in about 11 seconds, which is pretty incredible when you consider that the BMP-2's ATGMs reload in about 27 seconds. So firing the ATGMs first means that you only really switch to the 30mm when you need to, like when you're in close engagement. That's when you switch to the 30mm when you've already fired your missile, it's reloading, and you want to continue your damage output. The BMP-3 is a very, very nice machine with the setup that I've got. In my opinion, I absolutely love this thing. I've got the max speed up to 94 kilometers an hour with 158 meters of concealment. It is a very nice light tank. And the more I think about it, I really can't believe that Wargaming have made such a good tank so cheap. I mean, you need about 925,000 XP to unlock the Stingray 2. And that thing, in my opinion, is absolute garbage. And it too is the start of Era 3. So we're talking about a 300,000 XP difference between two tanks that are at the same level in the game. We're talking about Tier 1 of Era 3. Stingray 2, BMP-3 are at the same level, but the BMP-3 is an absolutely incredible vehicle, and the Stingray 2 it just doesn't compare when you consider its own cost and the way it plays. The only reason, and I'll say this right now, the only reason to play the Stingray 2 is because you want the Bradley. The Bradley is amazing, and you'll have to put up with the Stingray 2 to get there. But if you don't have an Era 3 yet, and you don't want to fork out a small fortune for a premium Era 3, I strongly recommend you go for the BMP-3. It is a brilliant tank, and the road leading up to it in Era 2 it's nothing short of fun. Free XP the PT-76 if you can in Era 1, because that thing is also garbage. You know, the less said about that the better. But anyway, the BMP-3 is the cheapest and, in my opinion, best route to Era 3. Alright folks, that's about all I've got for this one. If you've enjoyed this video, please leave it a like, if not a dislike. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and as always, I hope you're all keeping well, and I will see you out there.